It seemed to her that no one would ever love her, that her life would forever remain empty and devoid of warmth. Until little children's hands began to persistently reach out to her, warm and sincere. "Emily, I will protect you. I love you." The little boy pressed himself against her right side. "I love you more." From the other side, a little girl hit her with her little fist. The girl was already surprised, but she was even more amazed when an adult dark-haired man also pressed himself against her. There was not a drop of doubt in his movements. On the contrary, he seemed to want to say that they were now one family. "No, I love you much more," he said with a gentle smile. The girl's mouth opened in amazement and she blushed deeply, but happiness shone in her eyes. She never thought she would have a loving family. She was dying. After her father's death, life turned into a nightmare. Days merged into a gray hopelessness. Nights dragged on endlessly, like torture. Every hour seemed like a new blow. Her stepmother and sister treated her like a servant. They squandered her inheritance and sold her to the royal family, a cruel, crazy prince. "Emily, what were you talking about with Duke Isaac?" The prince rushed at her with his fists. The girl justified herself by saying that they had simply said hello and tearfully asked for forgiveness. But the man was furious, because Isaac was next in line to the throne, and she was smiling at him. He beat her every day for the slightest mistake. Apart from the king, the prince's father, only Gazelle Isaac was kind to her. But after Duke Isaac was accused of murdering the king and sentenced to death, she no longer had any support. One day, Emily overheard a quiet conversation between the prince and the queen about how, as they thought, he would now definitely become king. The way it was said made the girl doubt the fairness of what was happening. And that same evening, she dared to ask Prince Philip if Duke Isaac had really killed the king. The man was indignant at what she was hinting at, and at the same time tried to stop her from saying it out loud. But Emily seemed not to hear him, and continued to say that the prince himself had previously mentioned that the duke was standing in the way of his throne, and he had no reason to kill the king. "In fact, the girl did not have time to finish." Philip found himself with a heavy bottle in his hands, and the girl sank to the floor, feeling blood running down her forehead. "Yes, it was I who killed him. My father himself is to blame. He wanted to deprive me of the throne." The prince went berserk, his eyes sparkling with madness. The blood wouldn't stop. Everything was swimming before her eyes, and Emily could barely hear Philip screaming that he had accused that idiot Isaac, and now no one would stop him. "You are a stupid woman, Emily. You would do better to keep quiet and continue playing your role," the prince concluded almost peacefully, standing over the dying girl. "He's right. She's such a fool. After finding out the truth, Emily did nothing. Was there any meaning in her life? She was abandoned, humiliated, and now killed. Would she like to start all over again?" "Emily, we've found you a groom," said the woman sitting opposite. The girl stared at her in bewilderment, not understanding what was happening. The next second there was a splash of water that doused the girl, and she woke up. "What are you mumbling about?" "You didn't hear what your mother told you?" The girl who poured water on Emily was indignant. It was the stepmother and her daughter, Melanie. They were sitting in the dining room of their house. Emily did not understand what was happening, because she had just been killed. "I'll repeat once again, we found you a groom," the woman said, starting to get angry. Wiping her face with a napkin, the girl listened with ever-increasing horror to the fact that she was about to marry Prince Philip. And for a ragamuffin like her, this was a gift from fate. "For Prince Philip!" Emily screamed, jumping up from her seat so much so that she startled Melanie. She knew something was wrong because they had been married for a year. "You'll be the perfect couple. No one wants to marry him because he's a cruel, selfish jerk," Melanie giggled, congratulating her sister. The stepmother added to the shocked Emily that she should not even think that she could refuse. The engagement would be announced in a month. "It seems like this is a dream." Emily has already heard this conversation. It is too cruel and realistic a dream, and she does not want to relive this nightmare again. But since this was a dream, she could run away, Emily decided, and did something that surprised everyone. "Little sister, where are you going?" Melanie suddenly remembered, while the mistress of the house, without delay, gave the order to the servants to detain the fugitive. Pursued by screams, the girl ran as fast as she could. She would not live like this. She would run as far as possible, no matter that it was just a dream. Even if she's just imagining it, Emily wants to spend her last moments with dignity. It was already dark and cold outside. When she stopped, she found it was pouring rain, but she had been running for so long that she would probably die before Philip reached her. After catching her breath and resting, the girl looked around and noticed something. In this wilderness, where there was only forest around, there was a large dark estate. Without thinking twice, the girl entered the house and called out, "Excuse me, is anyone here?" Silence answered her, but Emily continued calling, not noticing that she was being watched. "Get out," came a dull, mournful voice. The girl turned around and screamed at the top of her lungs when she saw two white figures. But the next moment one of the ghosts stumbled, and Emily was surprised to notice small feet. Looking closer, she realized that it was not a ghost at all. Under the white sheet was a crying little boy. It rained cats and dogs on the estate that night. The little girl tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. She told her brother about this, and the boy said that he couldn't sleep either. "Hey, Louis, since Uncle is away, let's play hide and seek," the girl suggested, and the boy happily agreed. "Just quietly, they'll scold us if they notice us," the girl added, and Louis wanted to hide. But his sister noticed that he didn't know how to hide. He was always easy to find, and Louis had to agree to look, shouting to his brother to count to 100, and then look, the little girl ran off to hide. Laughing, she walked out into the street, confident that Louis would never find her. While wondering where exactly she should hide, the girl heard the creak of the gate, and with horror I realized that someone was coming into the house. I assumed that it was my uncle who had returned. She returned to the house in 2 leaps, where Louis saw her and thought she had been caught. "Oh no, Louis, Uncle is back, let's run into the room," the girl shouted. And then the children froze because they heard an unfamiliar voice. They hid on the 2nd floor and watched the stranger calling for at least someone. "What if she's a bad aunt? I'm scared." The boy was frightened, but his sister promised that they would drive her away. A few minutes later, covered with white sheets, the children began to implement the plan. On the count of 3, they came out of hiding and howled, "Get out." The stranger screamed shrilly, frightened by the ghosts. The little leg got tangled in the long sheet, and the ghost fell. "Oh!" it screamed, and a child's head appeared from under the sheet. Emily stopped being afraid, realizing with surprise that they were just children. "Louis, don't cry." Under the 2nd sheet was a girl, remarkably similar to the boy next to her. While she was comforting her brother, the girl cautiously called out to them. "Who are you?" The little girl gave the stranger a withering look. Emily winced and apologized for the intrusion, then bowed and introduced herself, explaining that she had gotten lost in the woods and had come across the estate. "Go away!" the girl screamed, hugging the frightened boy. But the girl did not give up. Apologizing once again, she asked permission to spend the night at the estate. But the little girl was also stubborn. They couldn't let anyone in. "If you don't leave, you will be cursed," the boy suddenly howled, covering himself with a sheet. "Louis, what are you doing? It's too late to pretend to be ghosts." The sister got angry. Because of the whole situation and the feigned seriousness, Emily laughed. And then she immediately apologized because the little girl didn't like it, explaining that they were very cute. "I heard we're cute," the boy whispered to his sister, but she only sighed. And then, with all the force she could, she threw a sheet at the stranger and demanded that she leave immediately. "If you don't leave, a curse will fall on you," the girl said seriously. Emily asked again in bewilderment, "What other curse?" and then stopped short. The girl was trembling, and she was also covering her frightened brother with her body. Emily understood that a stranger had entered the house in the middle of the night and they were scared. "Sorry for waking you up. I'll go," the girl said affectionately, deciding that it would be better for her to leave so as not to frighten them even more. But before she could leave, a threatening male voice rang out, asking, "What are you doing here?" Emily immediately turned towards the voice and sincerely said that she was very sorry. She tried to explain that she was lost and needed help, but faltered when she saw 2 men. She recognized one of them immediately. It was impossible not to recognize him. It was Duke Isaac, accused of murdering the king and sentenced to death. The look of those red eyes is impossible to forget. But the man suddenly doubled over in pain, and his companion rushed to his master, suggesting that his lordship lie down quickly. Emily was scared and even worried when she saw how much pain he was in. It was then that she noticed a bloody wound in his stomach area. "Are you okay?" The girl rushed towards him, realizing that he was wounded. But the Duke, through clenched teeth, told them not to touch him and to get out of the house. "Excuse me, we are busy now. Please leave the estate," the servant said more politely to the stranger. But Emily couldn't pass by the wounded man and decided that this would not leave her alone. With words of apology, she rushed to the Duke and opened his shirt. Then she concentrated, putting both hands on the wound. A glow appeared around the wound on her stomach, and the skin began to tighten. The men were shocked by what was happening and were unable to even move. When everything was finished, the girl wiped the sweat from her forehead and expressed hope that the Duke felt better. "My wound is gone," Isaac said in shock, touching his stomach and still not believing that the pain had gone away. I was glad to help. How good that was, Emily smiled. But she didn't have time to finish speaking because she was pulled to the side. The last thing she saw was the men rushing towards her, asking what happened. It seemed like she was dreaming, so it didn't matter what she was doing, but maybe she wasn't sleeping, the girl thought, seeing Duke Isaac's worried face. She opened her eyes, feeling the warmth from the roaring fireplace. Are you awake? Asked the man sitting opposite. The girl sat up, not quite understanding what was happening. Don't get up or you'll fall again, the Duke warned as she jumped up, suddenly realizing who was in front of her. But his warning was too late. Emily fell back onto the couch, feeling dizzy as the Duke explained that she had healed his wound and passed out. So she wasn't sleeping, Emily finally realized. She had never been a guest of the Duke and could not imagine that he would look after her, so it turns out that she returned to the past. Isaac asked if she could heal, and Emily admitted that she had weak abilities. I don't think you were weak, you saved me, the Duke suddenly smiled softly. And then he offered the stranger tea, to which the girl happily agreed. While enjoying her tea, the girl thought that this man was nicknamed the Duke Executioner, but he seemed like a good person to her. Isaac Gazelle, rumor has it that his family members are assassins in the service of the crown, hence the name Executioners. That's where his wound came from. It looks like the rumors of murders were true. Feeling the warmth warming her from the inside and outside, Emily closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks, as if she was alive and had returned to the past before her wedding with Philip. Why are you crying? The man was taken aback, and the girl quickly replied that the tea was simply very tasty. Deciding to distract her, the Duke asked her name and how she ended up in the forest at night. The girl immediately gave her name. But she was in no hurry to explain how she ended up here, not knowing where to start and afraid of saying something wrong, which would cause her to be thrown out into the street. Plucking up her courage, she blurted out to the surprised Duke that she had run away from home and had nowhere to go. I'm ready to do any job. Please let me stay, Emily asked. And she said that she could heal wounds and therefore would still be useful. Isaac admitted that she had helped him out a lot, but he would not give shelter to a stranger. You're right, it would be difficult to explain this to your wife, the girl said sadly, but the man replied that he was not married. Emily wondered too loudly whose children they were then, and the Duke replied that they were his older brothers. He took them in after the death of his brother and his wife. If she really did return to the past, then in a year Duke Isaac will be executed for the murder of the king. I wonder what will happen to the children after their uncle dies. Isaac didn't kill the king, he was framed, and if she doesn't do anything, the Duke will die. She will return home and become Philip's wife because she is a noblewoman, the daughter of the Marquis of Chloe, from a respected family with a long history. The stepmother and Melanie spent all of their father's money, and the family is on the verge of ruin, but the status of a marquise still carries weight in society. Duke Isaac is fighting with Philip for the right to the throne. If she joins forces with him, the Duke will have more influence. Moreover, she knows the future and can change it. There is only one way to prove to society that he and the Duke are in the same boat. The girl turned to the Duke, clasping her hands in front of her in prayer. Duke Isaac, will you marry me? Emily asked. The young man, stunned, asked again what she had said. Duke, you don't want Prince Philip to become king? The girl asked. Hearing this question, the man's face changed. How did she know this? Emily could not tell the truth that the prince himself told her about this, so she had to get out of it. I come from the family of the Marquis of Chloe, Emily explained. The more Isaac listened to her story, the more amazed he was by her words. Today she was told that she was going to marry Philip, but she was against the idea, so she ran away from home. So, I found myself on the street at night. I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away. The girl finished her story, but the Duke still didn't understand what marriage had to do with it. Emily responded emotionally that if she and Philip got married, he would definitely become king, and although Isaac was sure that there were many ways to prevent this, she insisted that if they got married, he would only gain time. The marriage will be fictitious. If you and I unite, then there will be no engagement. We will change the future of the country, the girl inspiredly persuaded. But Isaac cut her off, saying that he had no intention of marrying anyone. The girl herself had a fit after the Duke asked her if she had heard what they were saying about his family. Their family was nicknamed the Executioners, and they had the same nasty reputation as Philip. And I don't know when I'll die, the man concluded gloomily. This was another reason for the bad rumors about the Duke's family. The heads of the Isaac family always died young. The reason is shrouded in mystery, but Emily seems to know what happened to them. It's all about their work. That's why I'll be useful to you as a healer. The girl grabbed the Duke by the hand, but he reminded that his brother's children live with him and he must take care of them. "If something happens to you, what will happen to the children?" the girl asked reasonably, and the Duke was dumbfounded. Emily knew very well what it was like to lose loved ones after her father's death. She was left alone. Lost in her memories, she squeezed the man's hand tighter. Realizing that she was not going to give up, Gazelle sighed heavily. "I agree only on one condition," the Duke said, freeing himself from her grip. The Duke will give Emily a month, during which time she will have to look after Louis and Stella. "You should become friends. If you manage, we will get married," the man concluded. The girl was very happy. It was a good chance, and she would not miss it. "I'll do everything." She happily rushed to the Duke, assuring him that she knew how to run a household her stepmother had taught her. Tired of her cheerfulness, the Duke mentally hoped that she would refuse. This girl was throwing around loud words about the future of the country, but it seems to him that she simply does not want to marry Philip, and in a couple of days she will give in. Besides, there was another very important factor. The twins, his nephews, do not get along well with strangers. Louis was already asleep, and Stella couldn't stop thinking about that strange aunt who had healed her uncle's wound. Overall, this stranger was very suspicious. Maybe she is a witch. Tomorrow she needs to be driven away. The girl was brought out of her thoughts by her brother's screams in her sleep. "I'm scared, Stella, I'm scared," the baby cried, and his sister tried to calm him down as best she could. She took his hand and promised to hold it all night so he would know she was there. The baby agreed, and the girl also calmed down a little, smiling affectionately at him. Hugging her brother, she felt tears welling up in her eyes. She hated this world. Soon morning came at Duke Isaac's estate. Waking up and feeling energized, Emily remembered that she had been very tired yesterday. It was late at night when the Duke showed her her room, telling her to contact him if she needed anything. He also reminded her of their agreement she had to get along with the children within a month. Emily was full of enthusiasm last night, but now she realized that it was too bold of her to propose marriage, and she had no choice, and she had to do everything in her power. There was a knock at the door, and a maid appeared in the room with the message that breakfast was ready and she would show the mistress in. The table was laden with varied and delicious food. Seeing this, Emily was delighted with such a luxurious breakfast. No one had prepared it for her since her father died. "Good morning, Emily," came from behind, and the girl turned around. She asked Duke Isaac how he was feeling, and he replied that he was fine, thanks to her. And in turn, he asked if she had slept well, to which the girl replied that she had slept very soundly. "You can only be envied," the man stated mysteriously. The girl was surprised by these words, but did not have time to say anything else as children came into the dining room. "Good morning," the girl greeted them, but was met with an unfriendly look from the little girl. Duke Isaac, meanwhile, introduced the children to the girl. The eldest is Stella, the youngest is Louis. It didn't escape Emily's notice that the children had large, dark circles under their eyes. And also from their behavior, she realized with laughter that they were still afraid of her. "Since everyone is here, let's have breakfast," announced the Duke. How delicious! Emily ate with incredible appetite, enjoying every bite. It was the most delicious breakfast she had ever had, and the Duke politely replied that he was glad she liked it. And then he looked towards his nephews. "Stella, Louis, why aren't you eating?" the man asked. The boy immediately replied that he didn't like tomatoes, but the girl was indignant that she didn't want to eat with a stranger. "Her name is Emily Chloe. She will live with us. I hope you will get along." The Duke introduced the girl. Stella's indignation only increased. How is it to live with them? She came out of nowhere, and Louis asked if this is forever. Emily replied that she would really like it forever, and suggested calling her Emily, asking what to call them. "Don't invite us, we won't be friends," the girl answered rudely, leaving the table and leaving the dining room. The Duke tried to stop her because the girl had not eaten anything, but he failed. Moreover, Louis also wanted to go after his sister. "Louis, sit down," Gazelle said to his nephew, but the boy did not want to do it. Then Emily intervened and asked if he didn't want to eat. "You don't like tomatoes, so you don't want to have breakfast?" she asked with a smile. And she was very happy when the boy answered that they were very sour. "Wait, I'll cast a spell on the food so that it tastes good," the girl asked, taking a plate in one hand and a small vessel from the table in the other. She sprinkled sugar on the sour tomatoes and noticed that it tasted much better that way. "They're not sour now," Emily announced, tasting one tomato. And she offered another tomato to Louis, whose face showed great doubt. And yet the boy agreed to try one thing. But as soon as he began to chew the tomato sprinkled with sugar, his eyes lit up. "It tastes like fruit. Very tasty," the child admired, and the girl was glad that he liked it. "Louis, call me by my name," the boy said shyly, which made the girl even happier. Gazelle watched silently as this strange girl found an approach to his nephew. "Hey, Stella, Emily is so good." She turned tomatoes into fruits. Louis was in a hurry to share his joy with his sister, but she sternly said that he was not allowed to talk to her. Completely dejected and with tears in his eyes, he promised his sister not to be friends with Emily. "The evil witch needs to be thrown out." Stella was angry. She has to protect Louis. No one will hurt him again. They, the children of executioners, were always despised. "Run. These are the executioner's children. Don't go near them, or you'll go to hell." The other children ran away from them with such screams. The twins did not understand why they were treated this way, especially since it was not true. Their family were not executioners. "Don't come near my child." Even adults literally pushed Isaac's children away, and no one wanted to help them, even when they cried. They are the children of executioners. First their father died, then their mother. They were definitely cursed, people said, calling them a terrible family. "Why do they hate us? What have we done to them?" Louis cried. As an older sister, Stella consoled her brother, but she herself could hardly hold back her tears. If Mom and Dad were alive, they would be a happy family. Why don't they have a mom and dad? The girl thought painfully, sitting in her room. The sudden sound of the door opening distracted her from her dark thoughts. Emily appeared in the doorway and asked if she could come in, to which Stella, wiping her eyes, replied that of course not. "You still haven't had breakfast. I brought a snack." The girl ignored her rudeness. She was worried that if the baby didn't eat, she would get sick. "I would eat something else." The girl suddenly became kinder, and she pointed her finger at the forest outside the window, saying that deep in the forest, wild berries grow, namely red sweet strawberries, and she really wants them. Delighted that the girl had expressed a desire to eat, Emily happily agreed to pick strawberries. "Stella, is it really possible to go into that creepy forest?" Louis asked when the girl left, to which his sister replied that the witch would definitely not return that way. "And here's another one." Emily quickly picked berry after berry. Having collected enough berries, she decided it was time to go home. It was at this moment that the girl heard a suspicious sound. Turning around, she saw terrible predators approaching her, baring their teeth. Emily was seriously scared when she realized the situation she was in. "No, don't come any closer," the girl screamed, trying to get as far away from the approaching wolves as possible. But this did not stop them, and at some point the animals rushed at her, opening their mouths wide. "I'm finished," the girl thought and closed her eyes, awaiting inevitable death. But nothing else happened. Moreover, she heard another incomprehensible sound. The Duke appeared next to her, vigorously waving his sword and driving away the predators. "Duke Isaac," the girl exclaimed in surprise and joy, but the man did not share her joy and gave her a gloomy look. "What are you doing in the forest?" he asked sternly. And watching Emily hesitantly answer that she had simply decided to skip school, he only chuckled skeptically. And then he noticed a basket full of berries in her hands. Stella sat on the steps in the yard, lost in her sad thoughts, until I heard my uncle's displeased voice. "Stella, were you the one who sent Emily into the forest to pick berries?" asked the Duke, and the girl began to shake with fear. Emily intervened in their conversation, assuring him that he had misunderstood and that she was going herself. Shaking the basket, Gazelle retorted that if she had not been asked to pick berries, she would not have gone into the forest. Emily had to admit it, but she still tried to shield the girl by saying that she asked what she wanted. "Enough, uncle!" the girl screamed, unable to bear the tension. On the verge of hysteria, she screamed that her uncle had brought a witch into their house. "I tried to drive away the evil witch," Stella screamed with all her childish sincerity. The adults froze, stunned by such an outburst of children's feelings. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes, threatening to roll down in large, bitter drops. Emily noticed this and was taken aback. Stella is crying, and she is partly to blame for this child's tears. The Duke looked at his niece attentively until Emily called out to him. "Excuse me, could you leave me alone with Stella?" the girl asked. The little girl immediately asked in bewilderment why this was happening. "And what did you want to talk about?" the girl asked discontentedly when she and Emily sat down at the table in the garden gazebo. The girl said that she was not going to scold her. She went into the forest herself without warning the Duke. Stella frowned when Emily added that she understood her desire to protect her brother. The night she snuck into the estate, Stella wouldn't let her near Louis. After being silent for a while, the girl finally asked a question that surprised Amelia. "Why don't you want to leave?" asked the little girl. The girl hesitantly replied that she had nowhere else to go and needed the Duke's help. It would be wrong to tell the child that she had run away from home, and it would be wrong to raise the subject without discussing it with the Duke. "Just don't tell me you like your uncle." She sounded completely innocent, and Emily didn't immediately understand what she meant. And when she did, she blushed deeply, wondering why she had decided that at all. "You have terrible taste in men. You better give up." Judging by the girl's reaction, Stella thought she had hit the nail on the head, but she didn't have time to finish her threat. Right in front of her face was a cute, white, fluffy muzzle. The puppy, actively wagging its tail, jumped onto the table and barked cheerfully. The creature was cute and attracted everyone's attention, but not Stella's, who noticed only her brother. "Louis, what are you doing?" she asked the boy who had fallen nearby. Lou said that he saw how they spoke and decided to hide nearby. Suddenly, out of nowhere, this funny little puppy ran up to him. He played with the boy a little and ran towards the gazebo. Louis tried to stop him because Stella was there, but he didn't succeed. "What should we do? The puppy is homeless," Louis worried, but Emily replied that he had clean, neat fur and perhaps ran away from someone. The boy asked his sister if he could stay, but Stella firmly replied that her uncle would not allow it. "I'm sorry, we can't leave you," Louis said sadly to the puppy. It seemed that the dog understood everything, even the question of whether he would find his way home. And he certainly didn't want to leave the man he had found, following close behind Louis. "What should I do? I can't leave him." The boy looked at the girl in despair. After thinking for a moment, Emily felt encouraged that she could talk to the Duke about this. After telling the children to play with the puppy for now, she immediately ran into the house. "Emily will talk to her uncle for us." The boy was delighted, but Stella thought she was just wasting her time. The witch will not convince her uncle, who is adamant in such matters. "Yes, but I would like to keep the puppy," Louis said hopefully, petting the puppy. "Stella didn't ask me to pick berries for nothing." "It was all for Louis's sake," the girl explained to the Duke. She added that the girl protects her brother from strangers. Stella herself admitted it, asked Gezin, but the girl answered negatively. On the night she snuck into the estate, the little girl defended it in every way possible. The Duke listened in surprise as Emily called Stella a caring girl who loved her brother very much. It was interesting to learn this from a virtual stranger. Moving on to the real reason for her visit, the girl said that a puppy had gotten into the garden. Louis was playing with it. Apparently the animal had escaped from its owner, and Emily asked the Duke to allow the children to keep it until it was found. "Okay, let him live with us for now," Gazelle answered calmly. And the girl was surprised. Did he really agree so easily? She thought that he would be against it, but the Duke immediately added that it was only temporary. They would not leave him forever. The inspired girl said that tomorrow she would go to the city to look for the owners, and then Theo's assistant entered the conversation, offering the owner to accompany her. "It's time for Mr. Lewis and Mrs. Stella to buy new clothes, and at the same time you can pick out something for Mrs. Emily," he said to the Duke. The girl immediately began to deny that she needed anything. Gazelle Isaac, although not very pleased with this arrangement, nevertheless agreed with this necessity and asked to tell the children that they were going to the city tomorrow. The city streets were crowded and therefore noisy. Duke Isaac's carriage arrived in the city, and the entire small family made their way through the crowd. Emily covered her face with her wide-brimmed hat, hoping that no one would recognize her in this crowd. She also really wouldn't want to run into her stepmother and Melanie. But they went straight to Cutesy Boutique, a fashion store. "Ta-da!" Stella announced happily as she and her brother tried on their outfits. Emily was absolutely delighted. The children looked so cute and the clothes suited them so well. "Of course, I'm a cutie myself," the girl answered proudly, while Emily suggested that they try on another costume. Next came the sailor suits, followed by more formal attire, and in whatever attire the Duke's nephews looked very sweet and charming. All the clothes were so beautiful that Emily couldn't choose anything in particular. The Duke, who had been silently watching the fitting, offered the girl to try on something. She was embarrassed at first, but still agreed. Having chosen one outfit, the girl put it on and left the fitting room asking how she looked. "Well, not bad," Stella answered without enthusiasm. Meanwhile, the seller offered the lady several more options to choose from. Emily refused, saying that one would be enough for her, but the Duke immediately said that they would take everything and asked her to pack it along with the children's things. The girl tried to object, but the man did not listen to her at all, offering to accompany their purchases to the carriage. In the blink of an eye, she was left alone, watching the Duke leave. And then she smiled, although it was unclear what this man was thinking, but he seemed like a good person to her. The tiled road was filled with the sound of heels, but it seemed their owner was not very pleased. "Oh my, such expensive boots, but it's impossible to walk in them?" Melanie was indignant, twirling her bag in her hands while a servant obediently followed her with purchases. Indignant that she would complain to the shop owner because their shoes would give her blisters, she did not notice that she had become the object of surveillance. A few moments later, a man rushed past her, snatching the bag that was dangling so carelessly from her hands. "Hey, thief! Catch the thief!" A shrill female scream echoed through the street. Out of the corner of his eye, the Duke saw a man running towards him and a girl trying to catch up with him. On an instinctive level, he turned around, and a moment later the thief was lying on the sidewalk. Isaac picked up the bag and handed it to the girl who ran up. "Thank you," Melanie replied timidly, impressed by her savior. While the Duke was handing the criminal over to the police, the girl could not take her eyes off him. Hearts lit up in Melanie's eyes. Not only was this man strong, but he was also so handsome. She finally met her handsome prince. "Thank you very much." The girl approached him and introduced herself as Melanie from the house of the Marquis of Chloe. Hearing the name Chloe, Gazelle was dumbfounded. And while the girl offered to thank him by inviting him to have delicious tea at home, the man left without turning around, saying on the go that he didn't need gratitude and had urgent business. "No, wait," Melanie tried to stop him, realizing that if he let it go now, they would never meet again. But as luck would have it, there was a crowd of people on the street, and her savior quickly disappeared from sight. When the crowd finally dispersed, the girl stopped, looking around and cursing both the crowd and the new shoes that were restricting her movements. Suddenly, she saw the one she had been looking for with such zeal. He stood near a rich carriage and talked to a servant. And when Melanie was about to call out to the man, her plans were shattered by a female voice. "Sorry for the wait. I spoke to the seller. He promised to help find the owners." A girl hurried to the map, followed by 2 children. Emily added that Stella drew a beautiful picture of a puppy. And they put up ads. "Louis really hopes that his owner will be found. It's time for us to go home." The Duke extended his hand to the girl. Emily blushed, but still thanked him and offered her hand to the man. All this took place near the carriage under the watchful eye of an outsider. Melanie was literally shaking with rage, wondering where it had come from. After all, the girl who was next to her prince was her half-sister Emily. The Duke's carriage drove away, and the girl continued to watch it, shaking with anger and indignation. "Lady Melanie, you disappeared so suddenly, you are fine." A servant, who had previously lost sight of her, hurried towards her. He recognized the departing carriage and asked, dumbfounded, if she had really spoken to the executioner Duke. The executioner, that's what the rumors are about, the girl realized. The servant asked if he had frightened her, but the girl replied that she did not even recognize him, and no, she was not at all frightened. But then she was overcome with rage again. Where does Emily know the prince of her dreams? Melanie will never let them be together. The carriage rolled quietly through the city streets. Isaac drove in silence, looking thoughtfully out the window and thinking about something. After some time, the man quietly called the girl sitting next to him. "Miss Emily, I ran into a girl from the Chloe family. Do you mind?" he said, while watching her reaction. And her reaction was not long in coming. Emily's eyes widened in fear and her body tensed. But no, Melanie was nearby. The girl was already regretting that she had agreed to go to the city. If they find her, they will catch her and give her to Philip. Then he will definitely kill her again. Emily curled up in her seat, shaking slightly with fear. The girl's behavior did not escape Stella's notice, but she did not understand its reasons. Melanie, upon returning home, immediately rushed to her mother. Patricia Chloe, Emily's stepmother, asked her daughter what happened. "I saw Emily," the girl cried emotionally. She told her mother in detail that she saw Emily walking around the city with the executioner Duke. This made Patricia wary because Emily certainly wasn't familiar with Duke Isaac. However, they need to get her home as soon as possible. They don't want the palace to flood them with letters. "Emily, don't even try to hide from us," the woman said mentally. Meanwhile, life at the Isaac estate went on as usual. Stella sat on the steps in the garden and drew butterflies flying around. "Wow, you draw butterflies so beautifully." Emily's voice sounded nearby and the girl shuddered. Quickly hiding the album behind her back, she screamed that she didn't allow anyone to look. Stella looked with displeasure at the girl, who apologized and said that she had done it so well that she had admired it. But the little girl cut Emily off, saying that she didn't have to try. "Are you and your uncle hiding something from us?" she asked the surprised girl. And the fact that it was partially true made Emily flinch, and the girl continued to speak, and her tone sounded accusatory. "You know what Uncle does at night?" A small finger was pointed at Emily. The girl was completely confused, but also felt some relief. For a second, she thought the little girl was talking about her marriage to the Duke and their agreement to befriend the children. And she replied that she had not been told anything about it. She even thought that she was not sure about the origin of the Duke's wound. It was unlikely that it was received during work. You are close friends, and he didn't say anything. Stella didn't believe him, discouraging Emily with her assumption. The girl could only laugh nervously, while Stella made an important decision for herself, becoming very angry. It was decided that since no one knew anything, she would find out everything herself. Night fell quietly on the Isaac family estate. All its inhabitants had long since fallen asleep, and only the Duke, accompanied by his assistant, quietly slipped out the door. The young people headed towards the gate, not noticing that they were being watched. "We will reveal the secret ourselves, Uncle," Stella whispered to the departing group. Louis was not very supportive of her aspirations. He would have preferred to stay at home. Dressed in dark cloaks with hoods, the children quietly followed their uncle. The captivated Stella did not take her eyes off the pursued object, noticing anything else, until her brother tugged her arm hard. "Stella, stop, Stella!" The boy held his sister's hand tightly to himself. He was shaking with fear, and tears appeared in his eyes. The girl tried to break free from the strong grip, but the baby was worried that his uncle would get angry if he saw them. "Let me go. Uncle is leaving now." Stella finally pulled her hand away and looked ahead, but the adults were already gone without a trace. They had left. For a few moments, the girl simply looked into the distance, and then she became angry. "Because of you, we lost him," she shouted at her brother. "I'm sick of you. I don't want to see you." Stella cried out in despair and ran back into the house. Louis was left alone on the street at night. The boy cried and asked his sister not to leave him. Emily was sleeping when something woke her up. Realizing that she had woken up because of the sound of someone crying, the girl looked out into the corridor. And to my surprise, I found Louis there sobbing loudly. She rushed to the child, asking what had happened and why he was crying. "Come on, sit with me and calm down," the girl suggested, and the boy just shook his head in response. He just wanted to go to his sister. A couple of minutes later, Emily knocked on the nursery door. "Leave me alone, go away," came a disgruntled cry when the girl and Louis entered the room. The girl had never seen Stella so angry, but she realized that the children had had a big fight. In response to her brother's attempts to make peace, the girl screamed again, calling him a crybaby and saying that she hated whiners. The baby was taken aback. He didn't expect this from his beloved sister, who always protected him. And the next moment he burst into tears with redoubled force. Emily was confused about why they had argued, what they had disagreed about, and what she should do about it, since her intervention could only make things worse. But Lewin needed to be calmed down, and after looking around, she realized how to do it. The boy continued to cry but heard unusual sounds and was surprised. "I fly wherever I want, high, high in the sky," Emily began in the voice of a storyteller, holding a large book in front of her. "I know about everything in the world. I was the almighty God of this world," she continued to read. One day an eagle saw a snake with birds circling above it. "Poor snake. I will turn back time." His wish came true. The snake's wounds disappeared. They started living like their uncle, Louis noted happily. After finishing reading, Emily closed the book with a smile. And she praised the boy because he didn't cry anymore. And although the crying had died down, now the boy's stomach made a loud, drawn-out sound. "Are you hungry?" the girl asked with a laugh. She thought for a moment, and then a great idea came to her mind. After asking Louis to wait a minute, the girl ran out of the room. Soon, there were ruddy, fluffy pancakes on the table. "Ta-da, pancakes with wild berries," Emily explained, but the baby was already ready with cutlery. The aroma of food reached Stella, who was hiding under the blanket. Emily whispered to Louis if his sister liked strawberries. He turned out to be a very smart child, and, taking a plate of pancakes, he headed towards his sister. "I won't eat it all, you will," he asked, handing Stella a piece of pancake. The girl was in no hurry to agree, but the struggle was visible on her face. Pretending to be forced, she agreed and crawled out from under the blanket. Having quickly gobbled up the pancakes, the girl told her brother that he was a fool and that his mouth was dirty. And then she helped him wipe his mouth with a napkin. Louis gasped, his sister laughed in response, and the boy laughed too. The children asked each other for forgiveness. Emily looked at these cute brother and sister and admired the fact that they would always be together. The lifeless body fell to the ground, struck by a sharp sword. The killer loomed over his victim, making sure it was all over. It was Duke Gazelle Isaac, and he was very tired from his work. The Duke's carriage rode quietly in the silence of the night. Gazelle looked out of the carriage window into the darkness for a long time in silence when his thoughts were interrupted. "The task is completed. There were more of them this time. "You are not tired?" Theo asked the gentleman, and he replied that he had long been accustomed to this. Then the assistant smiled, remembering something funny. The twins followed them closely from the house but then turned back. "They thought we wouldn't notice them." The Duke became indignant. His mood became even gloomier than it had been, because while there was a stranger living in the house, they all needed to be more careful. The girl washed, dried, and put back the last plate. Emily was very glad that the children had made peace and thought that she should visit them again before going to bed. But as soon as she approached the nursery door, she heard muffled screams. Fearing that something had happened, she burst into the room, but she immediately stopped at the threshold, seeing what was happening. Louis slept restlessly, crying out in his sleep and asking his sister for help, while Stella tried to calm him down. He feels bad about what happened. The girl became even more frightened, and she rushed to call the doctor. But she was stopped by a firm, childish voice. "Please, just leave." Stella's voice sounded too serious for her age. It seemed like she was in complete control of the situation. It was so unexpected and so strange that Emily did not resist. Returning to her room, the girl thought that Louis was feeling very bad, and it seemed that this was not the first time Stella had sat like this with him. Having reached the second floor, the girl was surprised to realize that she was not alone here. "Welcome back." Right in front of her, Duke Isaac was walking to his room. He returned late at night, as if he had been doing his dark deeds. The man asked why she was not sleeping, and the girl hesitated, trying to explain that Louis had a nightmare. She also asked if the boy was sick in some way. "Louis sleeps poorly every night. Don't pay attention to him." The Duke shook his head. But the girl was indignant, as it happened every night. And then it dawned on her that this was why the twins were sleepy every day. "It's none of your business," the man said sharply, his gaze warning. And he added that she shouldn't interfere where she wasn't wanted, after which he turned around, intending to leave. Emily couldn't leave it like that and held out her hand, asking him to wait. The Duke's reaction was lightning fast and aggressive. He pushed away with all his might the man who dared to touch him. It was as if what was happening was in slow motion. Since Emily was standing at the top of the stairs, she began to fall backwards from the strong push, risking falling down. In a split second, Gazelle realized what he had done and what it meant. And thanks to his reaction, he managed to catch the falling girl. "I'm sorry, I went too far. Are you okay?" he asked, feeling his heart pounding. The man's face was too close to the girl's face, and her heart was pounding too. "I can't stand by and watch Louis suffer," she shouted out what worried her most. Gazelle was taken aback, feeling an unimaginable tangle of his own emotions. Still holding the girl in his arms, he asked her if she was sure that now was the right time for this conversation. Emily was embarrassed and apologized, and the Duke let her go and thanked her for her concern for the children, but she could not help in any way. "Many family members suffer from this disease," he said bitterly. And then he left, leaving the girl wondering what they were hiding and whether she really couldn't help them in any way. Morning soon came, but it was far from kind. Emily thought hard all night, which is why she couldn't sleep. Her stupor was interrupted by a knock on the door, and she hurried to find out who had come. "Good morning, Louis. Are you okay?" she asked, seeing the boy on the threshold. But the baby didn't seem to hear her, and only muttered something under his breath, his head down. "The puppy is missing." Louis looked up at Emily, his eyes full of tears. The whole family spent the entire day searching hard for the lost puppy. "Fluffy, come out, Fluffy," Louis shouted, running around the estate in his pajamas. Hearing this, Stella asked if he really named the puppy that, and the boy confirmed it, adding that he had once responded to that name. "You shouldn't have given him a name," the sister said gloomily. After searching the entire house, he had to admit that he was not there, and Louis assumed that the puppy was whining from loneliness somewhere on the street. "He will definitely be found. Perhaps he ran away to his owner." The girl smiled tiredly, trying to maintain hope. But the kid was less optimistic. If they didn't find him, things would be bad. "He will disappear forever." Louis looked so miserable. There was something so deep and tragic in the child's voice that the girl's heart trembled. And she firmly said that they would find him, ask the maids to help, and she herself would search around the estate. The girl spent the next few hours walking around the entire area, pushing her way through the thickets and calling for the puppy. She searched everywhere, looking into the most hidden places. But it was already dark. Emily felt very tired, but the missing person was still not found. Looking at the full moon that came out from behind the clouds, she began to lose hope. When the girl returned to the house, Stella greeted her with exclamations about how dirty she was. "You found a puppy!" Louis rushed to her, but Emily had to upset him. At the same time, the maid returned with the message that they had searched the entire garden, but to no avail. The boy became completely despondent, hugging his teddy bear tightly. He sadly said that they would not see the puppy again. Emily's heart was breaking and she couldn't help it. But suddenly something caught her attention. "Louis, why did the teddy bear break?" Emily asked, and the boy replied that Fluffy was playing with him. It was Louis's favorite toy, and he got angry at the puppy. "Oh, now everything is clear." The girl rushed towards him, who really understood something. Having calmed the boy down, Emily suggested looking again in the bedroom, in one very secret place. And indeed, a very sad Fluffy was found in the children's bedroom under the bed. Everyone was very happy to see him, but Louis most of all. "Found, I'm so glad." The boy rushed to hug his friend. Emily thought they would find him here, because dogs hide when they are scolded. "Sorry I yelled at you, Fluffy," Louis said sadly, and the puppy licked the teddy bear cheerfully. The girl, meanwhile, asked to lend her the bear for a short while. Sitting on the sofa, Emily calmly and carefully sewed up the bear, while Louis fidgeted nearby, worried about the toy. Finally, the girl made the last stitch, returning the toy to its original appearance. "Everything is ready," she said to the boy, and his eyes lit up. Louis took the bear with delight. It looked like new. The kid was embarrassed, but still thanked the girl, and she herself was glad that she was useful. At home, she was treated like a servant, but now housework really helped her out. Squatting down next to the boy, she noticed that he loved the teddy bear very much. "My mother gave it to me. She bewitched it so that I wouldn't have nightmares," the child answered. Hearing about the nightmares, Emily remembered his restless sleep. "That's why you can't sleep well," the girl realized, and Louis just nodded in response. Then she carefully asked him what he was dreaming about, but the boy remained silent. And shouting that he wouldn't tell, he ran away in fear. Emily was left alone in the room, but now she understood everything. "Louis suffers from nightmares. This is what she saw last night." It was as if something clicked in her head, and Emily realized one important thing. "Louis, wait." She quickly stopped the boy. "If Emily is right, she can help these children." "Louis, why did you call the witch Stella was unhappy with what was happening in the nursery?" Neither the boy nor Emily expected such a reaction from her. "Sorry for barging in, but I know how to help you." Emily decided not to waste time and immediately voice her thoughts. "She can heal people, maybe she can cure them from nightmares too." The girl suggested trying to hold hands all night, but Stella was unhappy that she knew anything about nightmares. Louis admitted that he had told Emily, and now the girl's displeasure was directed at her brother. "I don't want to see bad dreams." The baby trembled as he said these words. He turned to Emily and, without looking at her, held out both hands, saying that he wanted to sleep holding hands. Stella's face darkened at her brother's actions, but she said nothing. Soon Louis was ready for bed, and Emily was holding his hand. "Please, let Louis's nightmare disappear," the girl said, and a faint green glow appeared in her hands. The baby felt the warmth and said it was nice. "Close your eyes. I'll be there." There was an atmosphere of comfort and calmness around. But not on the other side of the bed, where a disgruntled Stella announced that there was someone extra there looking straight at Emily. "I don't trust witches," the girl said, and, covering herself with a blanket, turned away after the girl offered to take her hand. Emily was embarrassed, but she partly understood her behavior. Meanwhile, she turned her attention to Louis. He seemed to be almost asleep and looked so calm and cute I would have pinched his cheek. "Let him sleep peacefully through the night without nightmares," Emily prayed. She was already glad that the night would pass peacefully when muffled screams were heard very close by. But Louis slept peacefully, but his sister tossed and turned and moaned. "Help!" the girl cried out and woke up in horror. She sat up in bed and started crying, and Emily gently asked her what she had dreamed about. Louis was fast asleep at this time, and so the girl invited Stella to take her hand. But the little girl stubbornly refused, saying not to pay attention to her and to watch her brother. Emily didn't argue and took the boy's hand again, deciding that her duty was to make friends with the little girl and help her. After all, she wants Stella to sleep soundly too. The morning that came was light and airy, and also free like a bird in flight. "I slept well," said Louis, not believing his own feelings. He hadn't had any nightmares all night, and Emily opened her sleepy eyes, seeming to have dozed off while sitting next to him. Seeing the boy wake up, she asked how he was feeling, and he shared his joy. He also shared his joy with his sister, saying that he slept soundly until the morning and had no nightmares at all. "Oh really, that's great," the girl replied without enthusiasm, with dark circles under her eyes. Louis was incredibly happy to get some sleep for the first time in a long time and was glowing with a wonderful mood. "Stella, try holding Emily's hand too," Louis suggested happily, and Emily was frightened by the girl's shaking. "No, no way, I don't want to," she shouted angrily. Emily was upset by this reaction, but there was nothing she could do. Besides, no one noticed that they were being followed. Gazelle was standing behind the door and listening to their conversation. A little earlier, he was informed that there was a guest in the twins' bedroom, and the Duke decided to visit them. The fact that the girl could dispel nightmares made him think, but at that moment his assistant was rushing towards him. Guests arrived at the estate early in the morning, and the Duke was forced to receive them. However, before revealing who these guests were, Theo hesitated. Two women were waiting in Duke Isaac's living room. "Excuse me, I think you have my Emily," the eldest of them said, her eyes sparkling. The Duke did not quite understand what she meant. At that moment, a second guest appeared from behind the woman. The woman herself explained that her daughter had recently seen her sister in the city. The Duke gave her his hand and they left together. Only after this did the Duke realize who had come to his house. Emily had finally woken up by then, and after making sure the children were okay, she hurried back to her room, telling Stella to call her if she needed to hold her hand, but the little girl only made a face in response. To get to her room, Emily had to walk down the second-floor gallery corridor, which overlooked the living room of the house, and there the girl saw something that seriously scared her. Following her instincts, she crouched down, hiding behind a column, because her stepmother and Melanie were in the house. But how did they find her? Hearing a barely audible noise, Melanie became alert. But she immediately realized that there was someone on the second floor, and she told her mother about it very loudly, pointing her finger. Emily froze in fear, but it was too late. 3 pairs of eyes stared at the girl, and her stepmother sternly called her by name. Her heart sank, but it was too late to hide. She had been noticed. The girl was forced to go down and sit on the sofa in the living room, barely managing to squeeze out a greeting. "Emily, I'm glad you're okay. We were so worried when you ran away," the woman said, and smiling tensely, she suggested that she could not believe her good fortune to become Prince Philip's wife. While her stepmother scolded her for putting the royal family in a bad light, Emily remembered that they never loved her, didn't even feed her or let her live in peace. "Apologize and we will forgive you. Let's go home." Patricia's smile was not at all friendly, and her stepsister accused her of lacking shame and conscience. And without waiting for an answer, they grabbed her by the hand and dragged her towards the exit. "You want this," the Duke said, noticing that the girl was not at all happy to see her relatives. Emily seemed to wake up from her stupor, and her stepmother confidently declared that she wanted to go home. "I didn't ask you." Gazelle's voice sounded threatening. Patricia Chloe was not used to this kind of treatment and was quite unhappy. "Emily, I asked you what you feel." The Duke repeated the question, turning to the girl. Emily froze. No one had ever asked about her own desires. And then fear washed over her, fear of what the future held, and the memories of how Philip treated her, and how in the end, her short but painful life ended. Suddenly, she felt that this could not happen again, and she pulled her hand away with force. "I want to stay with you," the girl confidently declared to the Duke, because she had returned to change her destiny. The stepmother and Melanie's mouths dropped open in surprise. "How selfish, Emily. Since when have you been so ill-mannered?" Patricia was indignant. Duke Isaac remarked that it was not for her to speak of good manners. They were the ones who showed up to see him early in the morning, and Emily never insulted him. Moreover, her zeal sometimes only hinders her. "Emily always takes care of those around her," the man said with unusual gentleness. The girl froze in surprise, and the stepmother became even more indignant, shouting that they would not allow a young lady to live in someone else's house without permission. The Duke did not at all think that she was loved so much, because he silently watched the guests. They were worried about their own well-being and not about Emily. "How dare you?" the woman choked with indignation. But the Duke calmly added that they simply wanted to sell her to the prince, and Patricia was at a loss, just stupidly opening her mouth and not knowing what to answer. Meanwhile, Gazelle slowly approached the girl and said that they could not live without Emily. "She is my bride," the man concluded, putting his arm around the girl's shoulders and pressing her to himself. Emily's relatives were in such a profound shock that they could only stupidly make excuses in response, but her stepmother insisted that she must marry Prince Philip. Isaac countered that after 20 years, everyone has the right to choose their own spouse, and they can't force her. Emily, as shocked as the others, was finally able to pull herself together and answer Patricia. "I am grateful to the Chloe family for everything, but I will marry Duke Isaac," the girl said, feeling that everything was getting better. Patricia's face darkened, realizing the implications of what was happening, and she said threateningly that Emily was responding to kindness with betrayal. While her mother spoke to the Duke, who defended Emily, Melanie watched from the sidelines, feeling a storm inside. Why her? Why did he get engaged to her? She could barely restrain herself from attacking her half-sister. It's not fair. It's not fair that he's protecting her like that. It should be her, Melanie, in her place. Patricia was the first to pull herself together and said that it was time for them to go, but at the end she said that Emily would definitely marry the prince. Melanie left without even looking at her sister, mentally promising that she would dance some more. When her stepmother and sister finally left, Emily thanked the Duke sincerely. "There is nothing to thank me for. As I said, we will need your abilities," the man replied, including the ability to drive away nightmares, and the girl was surprised that he already knew about it. The Duke has a peculiar manner of speech, the words he spoke about her to his stepmother. Emily had never heard such nice words addressed to her. Meanwhile, Stella stood on the other side of the door and had a hard time digesting what she had heard. The uncle and the witch are engaged. The girl's heart sank. At that moment, Theo was heading into the room and, seeing the lady, asked why she wasn't coming in. "This is not normal," the girl said and left, leaving the assistant perplexed. The young man entered the office and, seeing Emily there, politely greeted her. The Duke asked suspiciously if something was wrong, but Theo had good news. The puppy's owner wrote a letter. "Thank you for finding my dog. My friend saw the ad and contacted me. My name is Veronica, and I live on the outskirts of Santore. I wanted to take the puppy, but my legs hurt, so I can't come and visit me if you're passing by," the woman wrote. Not much time had passed since that letter when a grandmother named Veronica turned around at the noise and was delighted. The puppy jumped out of the boy's hands and, barking happily, rushed towards the elderly woman. "Hello, Snowball," the woman greeted happily, at the same time as the guests also introduced themselves. Veronica thanked them for finding Snowball and explained that she had not closed the door and he had run away. "Louis, come in," Emily called to the boy because he was hiding and did not dare to approach. "Your name is Louis," Grandma asked, smiling, and thanked him for looking after Snowball. The baby sat down and said goodbye to the puppy with tears in his eyes. The woman looked at the touched child with a soft smile and then called him by name. "Louis, don't you want to keep Snowball?" the boy heard and raised his head hopefully. The old woman pointed to the cane in her hands. As he could see, she couldn't walk with him. The little boy couldn't believe what she was saying, and the woman asked if he liked to play with Snowball. "I'm glad that Snowball is happy with you." The old woman smiled. Louis didn't answer, but words weren't needed. Everything was written on the boy's face. He was so happy that he even promised the lady to bring the puppy to her, promising that she wouldn't be lonely. "I am very pleased," Veronica smiled. Louis wondered if his uncle would allow him to keep the puppy, and Theo added that it would be difficult to persuade him. Emily immediately said with confidence that she would talk to the Duke. Louis was a little hesitant, but the girl was completely confident that she would succeed. She had already encountered the kind and caring side of Duke Isaac more than once, so she said with a smile that the Duke was a very kind person. That same evening, the girl went to the owner of the estate with a request. Gazelle was quite categorical. No. Emily's entire understanding of this world was suddenly shattered into pieces. But the girl was not going to give up so easily and promised to look after the puppy, but the man insisted on his own. He forbade getting a dog. The owner asked to take the puppy. Louis is delighted with him. Emily gave another argument, but the answer was unchanged. Moreover, Gazelle was beginning to get tired of such persistence. He told the girl to return the puppy to its owner. Then Emily used her last chance. Louis was still a baby. You can't take his close friend away from him. At these words, the Duke slowed down. It seemed he was thinking. "I understand, however, I insist." The man's tone did not suggest continuing this conversation. Emily was panicking about what she should do now. It seemed like she couldn't convince the Duke, but she wasn't going to give up so easily. Emily followed him around for the next few days, bringing up the puppy at every opportunity. This was repeated over and over again, several times a day. She even said that the dog would help with rehabilitation, but the answer was the same. "Don't follow me anymore." Gazelle's patience finally ran out. Emily finally had to talk to the boy. "Louis, I'm sorry. The Duke forbade me to take the puppy." The girl folded her hands in prayer and apologized. But she promised to think of something, which made Louis worry that she might be punished. The girl wondered why the Duke didn't want to get a dog, to which the boy suggested that it was because he was a crybaby. "That's not true," Emily cried out sincerely. She knew for sure that Duke Isaac cared and worried about his nephews, and suddenly she realized that his refusal had another meaning. Their conversation was interrupted by the Duke's voice. "You're discussing the dog. I ordered Theo to return the puppy to its owner tomorrow," he told Louis. And the boy sadly agreed, realizing that he was seeing his friend for the last time. "You don't want to keep the puppy because you're protecting Louis from the pain of loss?" Emily asked. Gazelle froze in place at her words. In an instant, memories came flooding back to the man. "Dad, Mom, don't leave me!" the boy cried loudly over the grave. Gazelle could only watch all this in silence. "What do you even know about Louis?" he said sharply. Emily understood how painful it was to lose loved ones, how heartbreaking it was. But what hurt even more was to give up something you held dear. The girl tried to speak softly but confidently, and her words fell on fertile ground. "If they are happy, comfortable, and happy, then after parting, valuable memories will remain forever," she said with a smile. "I want to be with Snowball," a child's voice was heard. "Yes, I am a crybaby, but if we are together, I will be happy," Louis cried but hugged the puppy. The Duke became gloomy and said that sooner or later time would take its toll. Whether Louis was ready for this, the boy didn't know. However, to his uncle's amazement, he said that he always wanted to be close to Snowball. It was hard, but Gazelle agreed that if that's what he wanted, then let him live with them. Emily and Louis were immediately delighted by his words. "Hooray, Snowball! You're staying with us!" they shouted like children, and the boy hugged the puppy tightly and said that he loved him very, very much. Looking at his unhappy nephew, the Duke himself smiled slightly. But not everyone in this house was so happy. Stella lay in her bed and thought painfully. The witch spoke about marriage. If they get married, then children will become unnecessary. Uninvited tears began to flow down the girl's cheeks. Would they really be abandoned, and would she and her brother be left alone again? That day will never be forgotten. It was cold and gloomy. Children cried loudly at their parents' graves, while people around them whispered that this was precisely why one should not marry executioners. The children were left alone, and it was terrible, but no one dared to approach them, fearing that the curse would fall on them too. "We won't take care of the damn children," that's what they said. Stella cried little. She only thought that her mother was a liar. After her father's death, she promised to be there. But what should they do with Louis now? "Someone please," even the stoic Stella finally couldn't hold back her tears. "I will be your guardian now," a male voice said. A tall man with an umbrella stood in front of them. The surprised girl asked who he was, and the man introduced himself as Gazelle Isaac, their father's younger brother. He didn't look like a cheerful father, but they had no choice. "You can get up," the man said to the boy who was almost lying on the ground. He didn't answer, he just hiccuped incessantly. Then the Duke handed his umbrella to his assistant, and he picked up the children with both hands. While Stella tried to break free, Louis only noticed that it was very high. "You're so light," the man said quietly with some sadness, but by doing so he attracted the girl's close attention. It was at that moment that he reminded her of their father, and now Stella wondered if her uncle would forget about them if he got married. Things are bad. They need to come up with something. The sun had already set behind the horizon, and night was coming into its own. "Emily, thank you for Snowball," Louis said touchingly, but the girl noticed that she had done nothing, because it was he himself who convinced the Duke to keep the puppy. The puppy fell asleep, and the boy wondered what he was dreaming about. Emily became wary when she heard about the dreams. Recently, Louis said that his mother had put a spell on the bear so that he wouldn't have nightmares. "Louis, you will tell me what nightmare you are having," and the boy immediately became gloomy. Emily added that she was not insisting on it. But Louis took a deep breath and said he wanted to tell her anyway. She saw that the story was difficult for him, but she prepared to listen attentively. "I dream of a skeleton with a scythe. He's chasing me. He wants to kill me," the child began to say. "In complete darkness, he can't escape from it, and then Mom and Dad die." "Because of me, Mom and Dad died?" the little boy asked in despair. Emily hastened to confidently object that he was not guilty of anything. "I too will be killed one day." Like in that dream, there was such despair and fear in Louis's voice that the girl's heart sank. She could no longer listen to such horrors from a small child and extended her hand. And then she hugged Louis tightly and assured him that she would not let this happen. "Never, never," the girl promised, and the baby first froze in surprise and then tears filled his eyes. It was like a dam had burst. The tears just kept flowing and flowing, accompanied by loud crying. He kept quiet about it for so long, but what should Emily do now that this estate is hiding? The sudden realization made the girl shudder. Could it be that Stella was also having the same nightmare? Emily spent a long time calming the crying boy, not noticing that they were being watched. Stella didn't understand what her brother was doing. Why is he with the witch? She wants to get rid of them. "You are a traitor, Louis," Stella was furious. At first glance, the next morning was completely ordinary. Only one little girl sat thoughtfully in her chair. Louis noticed that his sister had been acting strange since the morning and asked what had happened. "You are a traitor. Why did you hug a witch yesterday?" Stella suddenly screamed. The girls screamed that the witch would drive them out. But Louis insisted that Emily was not like that. She helped keep the puppy. "She'll marry her uncle," Stella cried out in despair. And the brother was happy that Emily would be a new mother, which made the girl even more angry because they only have one mother. "Yes, that's not what I'm talking about. If they get married, then we will interfere with them." Stella was completely desperate to explain everything to her brother. Losing patience, she promised to strangle Louis if he communicated with the witch and ran out of the room. The boy was left alone with his thoughts. They bother Emily. But he quickly dismissed this thought, confident that Stella had misunderstood it. Something needs to be done to make everything good. With these thoughts, he opened the closet and quickly found a box on the very top shelf, Stella's treasure trove. But she was so high that he couldn't reach her right away. One awkward movement and the box fell to the floor. All the treasures were scattered. Louis hurried to collect everything he had dropped. At that moment, he heard Snowball's cheerful barking and got scared, but it was too late. The cheerful puppy happily grabbed the dropped mitten. Emily was reading a book when someone quietly entered her room. It was Louis, and the girl asked what happened. "Emily, I've been naughty," the boy said sadly, showing her his chewed mittens. The girl began to ask what had happened, and the boy said that his mother had knitted these mittens for Stella, and he wanted to show them to Emily. The girl was very surprised why he would do that. "If you marry your uncle, you will drive us away," the boy was upset. "What? No, of course not." Emily was taken aback. Then Louis asked if she would be their new mother, and this question made the girl even more taken aback. Embarrassed and slightly blushing, she replied that if they didn't mind, that would be great, which made the boy very happy. "I was thinking that if you knit Stella some mittens too, you two could become friends," Louis suggested. But then this incident happened and the girl realized that his sister really valued these mittens. "Don't worry, I'll fix them." Emily rolled up her sleeves, and then Stella's dark voice was heard calling her brother. "Louis, you forgot what I told you," the girl said through clenched teeth. The boy didn't understand what to do. Stella noticed them. Moreover, the girl also noticed the mittens in her brother's hands. "Stella, forgive me," Louis bowed in fear. He cried and said through his tears that he had ruined everything. "It's okay. Put them back in place." She wasn't angry. Her voice didn't express any emotion at all. Louis looked after his sister in surprise, as did Emily, when Theo entered the room and asked what happened. The helper arrived just in time. Emily said she wanted to fix her mittens and asked to borrow a sewing kit. The young man immediately recognized these mittens as Mrs. Stella's. "I'm sorry it happened," the girl said, as she and Theo sat next to each other knitting mittens after she had told him everything that had just happened. Stella never left her mother's side, the assistant recalled. Even Louis didn't run after her as much as little Stella. Her mother spoiled her daughter with love and care. Hearing this, Emily was very surprised, but also felt some sadness. A little girl sat on the lap of a beautiful, smiling woman. "What soft cheeks you have, Stella," she said, touching the girl's face with her hands. "And I want you to take me by the hand." The little boy pleadingly stretched out his little hands. The mother told her daughter that it was now Louis's turn, but she did not want to let go, clinging tightly to her mother. And when asked how she would live without her mother, Stella answered that she would always be with her mother. "How unexpected! I thought she was a serious, caring sister," Emily drawled. Theo sadly replied that most likely the whole thing was that their mother killed herself. The girl was shocked to learn such details. After her husband's death, the twins' mother held on, but then suddenly something happened. Mrs. Stella does not understand why her mother died. She blames herself and everyone around her. It was terrible. Looking at the mitten in her hands, Emily thought, this girl suffered for so long. Theo also maintained a painful silence, but the fact that this girl was interested in the lives of children made him think about a lot of things. That evening, the assistant was busy with his regular duties when the Duke asked him what he thought of Emily. "She is a sincere person. She worries about the children," Theo answered, to the gentleman's surprise. Then Gazelle asked if Stella had made friends with her, to which the assistant laughingly replied that the little lady was an impregnable fortress. Looking thoughtfully out the window, Isaac noticed that almost a month had passed. "Stella," Louis called to his sister, looking very excited. Handing the girl the mittens, the boy apologized and said that Emily had fixed them, and the girl added that he had helped too. "I thought they were too small, but now they will be the right size," the girl said. The girl silently accepted the mittens and didn't even smile. But as soon as Louis looked at her face, he even got scared. Stella lowered her head, her eyes filling with tears. "Stella, are you crying?" the boy asked worriedly. The girl asked in a low voice why they had to be fixed at all, and after the answer that their mother had given them to her, he told his brother to leave. Louis did not immediately understand what his sister had said. "Go away!" Stella screamed hysterically and ran out of the room. Neither the boy nor Emily, who was standing next to him, could say anything and did not even expect such a reaction. Louis's eyes also began to fill with tears. Because of him, Stella was crying. The boy burst into tears, and the girl tried to assure him that he was not guilty of anything. She herself was alarmed by Stella's behavior and believed that she was partly to blame for it. Duke Isaac, who came to visit the children, witnessed this emotional scene. Returning alone to the nursery, Stella cried on the sofa, hugging her mittens. "Mom, I tried to forget you. I miss you," she said into the void. The more the girl looked at the mittens, the more tears flowed from her little eyes. Suddenly there was a soft knock and her name was called. "Stella, can we talk?" asked her uncle, and she answered negatively without turning around, citing the fact that her eyes hurt. But Gazelle was in no hurry to leave, because he understood his niece's emotional state. "Here, take this." He handed her his handkerchief. "I'm not crying, I just got something in my eye." Stella was very stubborn, but still, the child gratefully accepted the adult's help. After some time, the Duke asked if she had calmed down, and the girl in response asked what he wanted to talk about. "Tell me what you think of Emily," her uncle asked her bluntly. The little girl asked in response whether her uncle would marry her, and she explained that she heard this when he was talking to her family. After all, if they get married, they will be driven away because they are not his children. Gazelle was very shocked to hear this from a small child. "Sorry for making you worry." The man stroked the girl's head and promised that everything would be fine now. "Tomorrow will be exactly a month since I came here. Stella hates me," Emily thought out loud. If nothing changes, it will turn out that she came here in vain. Louis accidentally overheard the girl's words and realized that if he and Stella did not make peace, then Mrs. Emily would leave. He worries about his sister, but he really doesn't want Emily to leave. "Miss Emily, I have a plan," the boy said timidly. The next morning, Louis approached his sister and suggested playing hide-and-seek. The girl became interested, and her brother added that Emily would be driving. "If the witch is playing, then I won't," she hid under the blanket, and Emily whispered to Louis not to insist, but he said to stick to the plan. "Actually, I'm the best driver," Emily said loudly, and the blanket the girl was hiding under twitched. "No, I'm the best at hide-and-seek," Stella jumped up, and then she realized that she had fallen for the bait, and the girl laughed. Then she suggested that they immediately decide who was the best player here. For the next few hours, Emily and the children played hide-and-seek throughout the house. "Got you, Stella," the girl found her once again. Stella was indignant that she was just unlucky, but Emily confidently declared that she would find her anyway. The girl was distracted from their conversation when she saw something nearby. "Look at how many butterflies there are," she said delightedly, pointing her finger upward. And the girl replied that they always fly here. Emily asked if she liked butterflies because they fly wherever they want, and she envied them. "No one in my family loved me. I was hurt and lonely," Emily said sadly. That's why she always dreamed of running away from home. While she was sharing her innermost thoughts, one of the butterflies zigzagged down towards Stella. And as soon as it landed on her finger, the little girl noticed that the butterfly had a broken wing. "She won't fly away anymore?" she asked sadly. But Emily asked her to wait a minute and stretched out both hands, from which a greenish healing light poured out. A few moments later, the butterfly's wing became whole and Stella was very happy. The beautiful insect flapped its wings as if warming up. Emily and Stella wholeheartedly rooted for it to be able to fly. The butterfly flapped its wings over and over again, not daring to fly away. "You can do it," the girl cried. And at that moment, the butterfly flapped its wings and flew up into the sky. It flew away, Stella and Emily said happily in unison, looking at the sky with delight. The little girl felt freedom in her heart and joy for the beautiful creature whom she mentally wished to fly as far as possible. "I want to be a butterfly," Stella said to Emily's surprise. "I want to be as free." The girl's gaze softened, and she thanked the girl for helping the butterfly. Emily was happy, but was afraid to express her joy too much, so she only smiled slightly and then thanked her for playing with her. "I just like hide-and-seek," the girl retorted, and Emily called her home because the Duke would be worried. "Don't worry, this is your home, Stella. You are safe here," Emily said softly, turning to the girl. Stella was taken aback, not understanding what she meant. "Miss Emily," a third man hurried towards them. The girl, not expecting a trick, responded, but Stella was seriously scared. "I'm afraid you must leave our house," Duke Isaac said gloomily. holding the tearful Louis in his arms. The boy begged his uncle not to drive Lady Emily away, but the girl assumed that this would happen, so she obeyed without question. Even the Duke noticed that she was surprisingly calm, to which the girl said that she herself was going to raise this issue. "Sorry," Gazelle said, but Emily noticed that he had nothing to apologize for. They had an agreement. And she sincerely thanked them for giving her this month. Having said goodbye like this, Emily went to pack her things. And only Stella looked after her with a heavy heart, wondering if it was really her fault. After packing her things, Emily said goodbye to everyone. "What are you going to do next?" Theo asked her, and the girl answered with a smile that she would first find a place to stay for the night. The Duke's assistant responded by handing her a bag of coins, saying that the gentleman had given it to her for expenses. The girl couldn't accept the money, but Theo insisted, otherwise he would be scolded. She had to take it, and at that moment a sad Louis approached them. "Don't leave, I want to live with you," the boy asked. Emily understood everything, but she couldn't stay. And so, kneeling before him, the girl hugged the child and promised to visit him. Realizing that she would not stay, the baby burst into tears in her arms. And after a couple of moments, he broke free and screamed for her to stay and not leave him. Theo began to calm the young gentleman, who was already starting to get hysterical. "Let's see the lady off properly so that she doesn't get upset either," the Duke's assistant admonished the struggling child. Stella watched the situation from the sidelines and wondered if Emily might not have wanted to leave them. Otherwise, what do her words mean about Stella being safe here? Emily left, and Louis sat on the floor and asked his sister if she was sad. The girl proudly replied that she was not sad at all. "I know what you're thinking. We're twins," the boy said calmly. Stella didn't answer, but deep down she was forced to admit that he was right. "Was it worth sending Emily away?" asked the Duke's assistant, to which he answered affirmatively without hesitation. "You, sir, are upset," Theo stated. Gazelle didn't answer. There was no other solution to this situation. Meanwhile, in the chambers of the royal palace, Prince Philip was sitting surrounded by beautiful girls courting him when a servant appeared with a message. The Marquise of Chloe wanted to meet him, and the servant was interested in what to answer her. "Greetings to the young son of the Empire." Patricia Chloe bowed and immediately announced that she had a request. The case concerns her daughter Emily, who has announced that she is marrying Duke Isaac Gazelle. That's why Philip became wary and ordered the woman to tell him everything. Emily, meanwhile, found herself a place to spend the night. She thought it was a great place to take shelter from the rain and wind. There was even a bed. That was more than enough. She should save money because she would need money in the future, but despite this, the girl was quite happy. Life on the estate was a paradise for her. They were so kind to her. But she is very worried about the children she left behind. To be honest, Emily would really like to live with them. No, there is no need to despair now. The girl tried her best to get rid of sad thoughts. And just when Emily decided it was time to think about the future, there was a knock on the door of her new home. The girl hurried to open the door and was very surprised to see who had come to see her. Sorry for not warning. The Duke, his assistant, and Stella stood in front of her. Seeing the trio, Emily couldn't hide her amazement. A few hours earlier, Stella came to her uncle's office with a question that was troubling her. "If you marry her, Louis and I will be kicked out of the estate," the girl asked, lowering her head. Gazelle asked if she was talking about Emily, and the girl nodded affirmatively. "I would never leave you. This is your home." The man smiled. The way Uncle said it made Stella believe it was true. Plucking up her courage, the girl shouted out that she wanted Emily to come back. The Duke asked her again if she was sure of that, and the little girl proudly remarked that as long as she was there, Louis would sleep soundly. "And I'm sure she won't drive us away," Stella added, blushing slightly. After all, Emily loved butterflies too, and Gazelle replied that he understood. Stella stood in front of her uncle, waiting for his decision. "Okay, let's get Emily home together." Gazelle extended his hand to her. "That's how it happened," Theo explained the situation to Emily. And Duke Isaac apologized for the long story and bowed, saying that he wanted Emily to return to the estate. The girl immediately looked at Stella, from which the little girl noticed that she had not forbidden her to stay. "Do you mind if I live with you?" Emily asked, still not believing what was happening. "Yes, let's go home together," the Duke replied, and the little girl extended her hand to her. Realizing that this was all true, Emily couldn't contain her emotions. She rushed to hug the girl, completely without holding back. The little girl was taken aback. Why all of a sudden? But the girl replied that she was simply very happy, because now they would live together. So Emily Chloe returned to Duke Isaac's estate, and there she was met by Louis, who didn't believe that this was really happening. "I'm home, Louis," the girl said as the boy threw himself into her arms. He was very glad that she had returned, and Emily herself felt much calmer. The girl was touched. Even though she had lived here for only a month, this place had become her home. "I'm going to my room," Stella said, unable to bear it. Emily quickly apologized for hugging her unexpectedly, but the little girl didn't respond. Instead, she handed her a folded piece of paper. "I drew the butterfly myself," she told Emily. The girl couldn't believe that she had given her this gift, and Stella explained that she herself had said how much she loved butterflies. Emily's heart melted completely. It was the first and such a precious gift for her. "Thank you, I'll save it," she thanked the girl, and she suggested drawing more. And after a slight hesitation, Stella asked to be treated like Louis. Emily couldn't believe her ears and asked again if it was really possible. That is the baby really okay with this kind of treatment? "Just don't think that you and I are close friends," Stella warned. Emily and Louis were touched by the way the girl said it. Soon it was time to discuss the situation with the owner of the estate. "Let's start from the beginning, Emily. You're here again," said the Duke. "So they will get married after all." The girl was embarrassed, her heart fluttered, but she answered that she would do as he said. "So we need to have a wedding ceremony," Gazelle continued. And Emily was taken aback. Like a wedding, why so quickly? She is not ready for this.